This is Unveiled Codex, and with you today is Ibs.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Ollie.
Okay, if you're watching the video at the moment, you're watching Elder Scrolls Online footage from the recent beta test, and we're going to be talking about that today. So, Ibs?
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty good. I was worried that wasn't going to look similar to previous Elder Scrolls games, but from what I saw, it did.
It played differently to, say, a WoW-like MMO, while still being similar, I found. Ollie, you played as well?
I hated it intensely.
Okay.
Really?
But I didn't hate it intensely. Well, I played the first stress test they did, and the first area where you're in a prison. Actually, this is embargoed stuff, technically.
No, it's been released.
Oh, it's been released. Okay.
The latest test, they said you're no longer bound by the NDA.
Oh, fair enough. But the first prison section is really weak, I found.
Well, is this the Cold Harbour section?
Yeah, it's really. I thought it was really weak. Usually, well, what WoW has learned to do over the decade of its existence is that they learn that starting areas that start off kind of a bit lame tend to put people off, and that's why they've been slowly making them more interesting. But Elder Scrolls Online, though it's meant to be a prison breakout, it's still kind of go here, press that a little bit.
It was, but I found that it was short enough that it didn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
And, well, I think total playing time, it accounted for about half an hour to 45 minutes of my total play time. And then I was out, and it felt a lot more free once you left that initial kind of story area.
Well, the thing I want to know is that the starting sequence was really packed with voice actors. You had the guy who was Dumbledore. I can't remember his name. Gambon, Michael Band. And then you had Jennifer Hale, because she's in everything nowadays, because she is the female voice actor. And then you, I can't remember the other name.
I think it was John Cleese.
John Cleese,
Yeah.
that's the one. Yeah, the third. And I personally found it really obnoxious to have them all at the same. By having them all at the same time. Usually what a game does is, if you use Oblivion as an example, you have Patrick Stewart playing the king, and obviously, it's Patrick Stewart. And then you have Sean Bean as, what's his name? He's his son, not his son, but he's a descendant. Martin. And Martin, and you don't run from the king, get out of prison, and then you don't instantly run into Martin, so it's not so obnoxious in that you have to go and find him in Kavash. But in this, it's sort of a case of you run along and you go and you talk to Dumbledore, and Dumbledore's like, well, you need to go follow this assessment, blah, 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 and you will run straight into Jennifer Hale, and you're like, yeah, you're Jennifer Hale, and you run in and you run straight into John Cleese. It feels less like characters and more like voice actors, if you're right.
I found it more annoying in a different sense, in that I recognised John Cleese straight away.
Yeah.
So I got to his character and I was like, oh, that's John Cleese. But with Dumbledore, I spent half of the tutorial, like the opening section, trying to remember who it was.
Yeah.
Like, I recognised the voice, but it's been a while since I've seen Harry Potter, and just trying, it was kind of like that niggling sensation at the back of your head, just saying, who is this? I know it's important, I recognise the voice, and I think for a while I was convinced it was somebody completely else.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of a bad thing, because not everyone's watched Harry Potter recently or will recognise the voice actors instantly, but they will have that niggling sensation. It distracts from the game.
The problem is that he's meant to be the he's like the prophet or something. What's his actual name?
I can't remember his actual name.
Yeah, it's something kind of mystical.
Wasn't he called just the Prophet?
Yeah, something like that. But when he's going to be obviously going to be a central figure in the story, and you're not going to be thinking this is the prophet, blah blah blah. You're going to be thinking this is fucking, Harry Potter. This is Dumbledore.
But that's pretty much saying you can't use big name actors in games,
you can.
That's clearly not a problem in films. You can get past that. I think we need to see more big name actors in games, because it's kind of, the games can have this kind of pull to get them. They just have to be careful how you use them.
Yeah, I wouldn't, I'm fine with them using the actors, just it was implemented weirdly, just all dumped at the beginning.
Who was the guy who played the dad in Fallout 3? That was somebody.
Oh, that was. He's the guy. He's from Taken.
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson.
Oh yes.
Taken.
I didn't know that.
No.
Yeah.
Liam Neeson.
That's fine because Liam Neeson just has a sort of husky, deep voice, and it.
I will admit, when I played Fallout 3, I wasn't too familiar with Liam Neeson, so it wasn't that kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Liam Neeson.
I think the problem is with the Prophet is that the Prophet's also playing a sort of Dumbledore-y character, and that he's this mysterious guy. So you're just like, you're just waiting for him to say one of the Harry Potter lines was like, oh, you just need to turn on the light or some shit like that, and that's why when I was playing it, I also, when I was playing it anyway, there was so many server issues, but obviously that comes with being a stress test. But I don't know, we'll see. I wasn't blown away by it.
I don't think there's been a successful MMO launch in terms of like lag in years.
That's true.
It's lag and server issues at the start seems to be something that just comes with the territory at the moment.
I don't know how Guild Wars 2 did regarding that, because I played it a lot during the beta and there was a substantial beta to it. So.
Well, Star Wars had a big run up, and then everybody knows what happened.
Yeah,
around that Christmas time. I mean, I started playing in, I think, mid-January, when it was starting to sort itself out.
Yeah.
But I knew some people that had bought it on release and hadn't had a chance to play it all.
Yeah, no.
But the game, okay, it's not doing as well as they might have liked, but it's still, it did alright for a little while. Despite those server issues.
2 million subscribers, if I recall correctly. And then that dropped off pretty rapidly.
But I was more impressed with Elder Scrolls they were trying to do something a little bit different with the gameplay.
I noticed that, and I like that as well. Because a lot of games are very similar.
It seemed to be saying, this is how WoW does it. WoW follows a template that a lot of old MMOs used. This is how WoW did it. We don't want to do it exactly like this. It is similar, but it's not the same. And it did seem...
Yeah, well, I must confess, I didn't play enough of the combat to really get a grasp of it. Like, I played a tiny bit, but the thing that annoyed me, the most WoW-like thing that I discovered was the instant I left the prison, you appear in the ship, right? And there's a load of crates around, and you can loot some stuff from the crates. The first NPC I walk into, like the first one, is a vendor. Like it might be there was one like woman that I could talk to, I think, who would explain why we were there or something. But then, like immediately after that, vendors. I was just like, vendors are the most soulless NPCs in any universe ever, because they are just there to sell you things, and thus most player interaction with them is going to be right-click sell all or right-click repair all. And having them be the first NPC I had any sort of interaction with really sucked for me.
Well, I must admit, I didn't notice because I left and I immediately saw another player and I just kind of followed them for a little bit.
I actually found it really hard to distinguish between NPCs and players.
See, I liked that.
Yeah.
I felt that it meant that you were playing an MMO that felt like a world. Because, going around like the streets, nobody has a name tag above their heads.
Yeah.
And the dropping of name tags meant that it feels more... Well, the UI overall was very streamlined.
Yeah.
Realistic. I mean, I played without a minimap. And I didn't actually notice I didn't have a minimap for quite a while.
You have the compass.
Yeah. The compass, same as it is in Skyrim. Really difficult to tell depth from it. Yeah. I mean, I had a couple of instances where I was convinced something was behind a door.
Yeah,
when it's just around the corner.
Loads of people really hate the compass because everyone, loads of people have problems with it in that you're trying to display a world which is deep, as in geographically deep and huge distances in a 2D compass. But also loads of people have the problem that it effectively murders exploration because you spend most of your time running in directions to the compass rather than actually going somewhere because you want to.
I've always seen that as a case of, they give me this information, I must blindly follow it. When I was playing I did use the compass to figure out where I was, but a lot of the time I was just kind of following paths, going down cliffs and stuff like that. I mean, you don't have to pay attention to it, and presumably there's an option to turn it off. I mean, I didn't look because it didn't bother me.
Maybe. What?
Well, if it's anything like Elder Scrolls, there should be like a quest list, and you can like.
Yeah, this is the problem though. With Skyrim, there was an option to turn the compass off, but the quest descriptions are not enough to be able to find where you want to go. Where in Morrowind and Oblivion, you had enough detail in the quest logs to tell you where to go, but in Skyrim, you had to use the compass because there's not enough information there to tell you. It'd be like clear the cave of Draugrs or something, and it won't tell you which cave to go to or whereabouts it is. It just says clear the cave of Draugrs and the arrow.
I suppose that Skyrim, much more so than Oblivion, and I'm not sure about Morrowind, was more
Concept.
based around exploration. Like that's all. Like when I first got the game, like my first 100 hours or so, was just literally just walking around doing stuff and not doing any of the quests.
I don't know.
They did try and streamline the quest process. There was a lot more. You went into a place, there was a quest, as opposed to going to a person, picking up a quest, and then going somewhere else. This isn't so true in Elder Scrolls Online, but I did feel that in Skyrim, they were trying to go for this. Oh, you're in this cave. Here's the quest relating to that cave, for good or ill.
I hated the streamlining in the sense that a lot of the quests felt exactly the same. In that once you've seen one dungeon in Skyrim, you have seen every single one they can, because it's either going to be filled with bandits, Draugr, or the Dwemer things, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's the only variation you really get.
I agree. I felt the dungeons did feel very samey, but it was an improvement over Oblivion, where the dungeons were the same.
Yeah, well, those people found their dungeons confusing because they were genuinely confusing. But I don't know. I guess I'd have to play Oblivion again to get a feel for it.
Well, see, I haven't played Oblivion in years.
Yeah.
I would claim I preferred it, but I don't know if that's just nostalgia talking.
Yeah, I feel a lot of my love for Oblivion is because I played it first.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I've seen a lot of people quite happily claim that Morrowind had the best gameplay. And it's like, well, is that because you were introduced to the series through Morrowind, or you haven't played it in a while, or is it you genuinely feel that the gameplay was better back then? I mean, they've removed a lot of things, but like the removal of athletics and acrobatics between Oblivion and Skyrim was something that had to happen.
Yeah, that's true.
They were completely pointless stats by then.
But at the same time, I feel that they really threw the baby out with the bathwater in that when you level up in Oblivion, admittedly you level up because you've been jumping around so much, and that's put points into that. But you also had a choice of what I'm trying to remember exactly. You put points into different aspects, didn't you?
You when you leveled up, depending on which skills had been leveled up to reach your level up, and the minor skills that didn't directly contribute was taken into account. You would gain on level up a stat bonus to a certain stat, but you could only select 2 of them. So there might be, if you did a lot of hand-to-hand combat, that was a strength-based skill, and when it came to level up, you might be able to get +4, +5. I think that was maximum to points to strength. The problem with that system is that it didn't explain itself very well, I didn't feel, and it encourages this kind of really horrible min-maxing kind of gameplay in which if you level up certain skills in a precise order, you can make the best character.
That's true, but at the same time, in Skyrim, you have 3 things to select from, which was health, stamina, and magic, and so you're only putting points into 2, and you don't really get there's no choice. For if you're playing a fighter character or a rogue character, you put it in strength or stamina, and that's it.
The choice is in the perks, though.
Yeah, that's true, but at the same time, I can't remember how often did you get perks. You had to get a certain amount to hit a node.
Every level up, you got given a perk that you could spend in any of the trees.
Yeah, but
you could save them as well.
You could save them, but you needed a certain skill requirement for certain perk points, and then of course because they were physical trees, you needed the prerequisite perk cost.
which meant in a lot of cases you're sitting there on top of a pool of points because you don't want to throw them anywhere else because you've got to get that 15 or 12 at the times 15 crits or whatever.
Originally, when the level cap was finite, I found myself sitting on a lot of the points because I was like, oh, I could spend them here, but I might not have enough to spend them later in this tree that I want to max out.
Yeah.
But because they removed the cap, I think you can continue getting perk points now.
Yeah, there's no limit.
No limit, and that means that you can theoretically make a character with all the perks.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't find myself sitting on a massive point pool, and I did go to a reasonably high level because when I played a character, usually I was like I created it with a specific build in mind.
Yeah.
So I was like, this guy's a warrior. He's going to be using two-handed, and like if I was going to be putting all my like perk points into two-handed, like my two-handed is always of a sufficient level to be able to put perks in because that was my main contributor to my level up.
Well, that's fair enough.
And like the same was true with my illusionist. It was just a pain when if I wanted to make like a paladin, so it'd be like armor, sword, and restoration. I would be fine with armor and sword, but my restoration would take a while to be able to unlock the perk points.
Yeah, that's true.
I will admit I understand why they did a lot of the system, the skill system, but the way you leveled up skills annoyed me. In that, because like one-handed, like my preferred weapon in Oblivion and Skyrim, it was based on the number of hits with a one-handed weapon, which meant if you wanted to skill up, the best thing to do was to equip the worst dagger you had, because they had the smallest attack, and then go well on a mammoth.
Yeah.
Because if you were fast enough, they would never hit you, so you wouldn't take any damage, and you could get many hits off on them before they died.
Yeah, and the way you level up stealth was distance travelled, where you were undetected by an enemy that was nearby. So if you just walked into a wall, for some reason it leveled you up, even though you weren't going anywhere.
You could do a similar thing with acrobatics and athletics in Oblivion. Repeated, like just jumping on the spot. Or just running into a wall, I think, was sufficient to level it up.
Yeah, you could run into a wall and just level up.
Anyway, to bring it back to Elder Scrolls Online, how do you guys feel about the subscription model?
I don't mind it. I think that I'm happy to pay going into a game, and I pay a certain amount a month, so long as I get effectively getting anything. I mean, I can sit there and I can level up, I can do all the dungeons, I can do all the stuff until, of course, the inevitable huge content uptake comes. But with that, like, money I'm giving them, part of it's going for server upkeep, so I can keep playing with people, and part of that should be going on, like, patches and updates.
Yeah.
To clarify, what is the subscription model they're using for Elder Scrolls?
It's I pay per month basis.
I think it's £9
a
month, so $15 I think is the standard for most games like that.
I think they have made a mistake, because I think if they were aiming for something like, to use the example of EVE Online, that game's had a subscription model for almost a decade now as well, because that game came out in 2003, I think, so over a decade maybe, I don't know, around about that. And they've had quite an expensive fee, but they've always lingered around 300, 400,000 subscribers. It's been a small game, but it's got a lot of attention. The problem is, when they're making this, they want it to be they definitely want it to be a blockbuster, because this is the next Elder Scrolls game for them. So I think they're ultimately going to be disappointed, because the subscription model nowadays, I think, lends itself more to small player bases that are dedicated to enough to pay $15 a month, whereas your average Joe on the street might buy the Elder Scrolls Online, and he might play the 30 days you get free with it. If you get, they'll probably do something like that, because otherwise it'd be obscene. But they'll play the 30 days, and then they'll probably won't. A lot of people will just drop the subscription. They won't bother with it.
But I don't know enough about the kind of revenue and the subscription and the player base that free-to-play games are pulling in to really make that comparison.
Well, if market trends are to be believed, and the opinion of most high-level CEOs for publishers, free-to-play is massive. Well, free-to-play is far more. I don't know what the term to use. It's far more profitable for a certain kind of MMO.
Well, I know Lord of the Rings Online game I played when it was subscription based a couple of years ago, it turned over to a free to play game.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that its income tripled that year, but is that because there was a larger player base all spending a small amount of money, or was it because there was the same size player base but there were a group of people that were paying a lot of money and it made the statistics seem better than they were?
It's probably because the crux of free to play is that it's far easier to get a large amount of people to pay a tiny bit each than it is to charge everyone. The difference is a subscription fee feels like just that. It feels like you're toll to get through, right? But free to play, even though most of the time the paywall in free to play games is basically a toll, it doesn't feel like that. You feel like you're getting something for your money, whereas rather than in a subscription fee, you feel like you're just getting access to something you already get.
But then you also get the massive complaint about pay to win and how you can limit that and what should be available in the micropurchases. Like, should it be cosmetic only, or should it be in-game like features as well? And then if it's just cosmetic only, then that's only going to bring about a certain amount of money.
Guild Wars 2 has survived on cosmetic only, I believe. They might sell boosts of XP, I'm not sure, but don't sell out cosmetics. I mean, Dota 2 is enormous, and yeah, that's all cosmetics, like all of it.
I think it comes down to how you present the shop.
Yeah, exactly.
For a free-to-play game, your shop has to be well presented. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can integrate the service into the game, but you've got to say it can't feel like a wall.
Yeah.
It can't feel like you're playing and then all of a sudden you must pay.
Like a demo, so to say.
Yeah. Because otherwise you end up with this horrible situation where you're playing. Lotro did this, which was kind of annoying, but I think that's more because it went from a subscription game to a free-to-play game.
Yeah.
It kind of got parcelled up.
Yeah. Well, what they tend to do is when they make something free to play, rather than making it so that it's sort of you. I think maybe it was Gabe Newell. I'm not sure. It might be one of the Blizzard devs, but they said that you can't like shove free to play into something. You have to build a game around it, because when you shove it in, it does just feel like a paywall, because that's the only way they can do it. Like with basically every MOBA on the market, like almost every free to play MMO, there's always that like forbidden unholy button where you click it and then suddenly you've got a load of crap thrown in your face, like price tags, and that's the bad free to play. But the good free to play is when you sort of, it's interweaved into the game. Like I'd say, well, is Guild Wars 2 really free to play? That's another discussion to have, I guess. Because as you pay for the game, it's just 40 quid, but you don't pay a subscription fee. I wouldn't call it free to play.
I think we've got different types of free to play. You've got, for MMOs especially, you've got the base cost for the game. For all retail games, you've typically got, WoW, you've still got to go out and buy the disc.
Yeah.
You've got that, and then you've got the subscription with it, and that's the default subscription model. Then you have the true free-to-play, which is you can just go to their website, you can download it. There's never going to be a requirement to pay.
Yeah.
And then you've got the hybrid, which is either you're just paying a one-up cost and it's free from then, or I've seen systems where it's free to download, but there's an optional subscription system.
Yeah.
That, say you get, I think SOE runs this, things like PlanetSide and EverQuest. You pay a certain amount of money, you get some perks, and you get a small amount of the online currency.
Yeah, per month or so. Yeah.
As a kind of a reward for taking this system.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult to distinguish between them truly, and I don't think there's one like superior model. But you can certainly tell that some games have been built with them in mind.
Yeah.
I think the download for free with the optional subscription model tends to be a lot more prevalent in subscription services that transformed into a free-to-play game.
Yeah. It also, most games that aren't quite MMOs tend to pull that. I mean, PlanetSide 2 is not an MMO, really. Not in the traditional sense we understand MMOs, in that it's slightly beyond massively multiplayer online. But I think when it comes down to it, each has the capacity to be as obnoxious as the other.
Yeah, they're all viable. It just depends on
really depends
who's targeted. Like,
I think
like a subscription lends itself more to like if you're targeting older players who have their own income, and free to play with like a shop to like younger players, because I guess they can like because like I'm not sure if a parent would necessarily get their kid a subscription.
Oh no, most parents, my mum wouldn't let me get a subscription.
But if a child was nagged enough, they might let them buy a one-off purchase or something like that.
Well, that's why time cards exist.
Yeah, you can get time cards. You can get them for WoW. You used to have to get them for other MMOs, but I haven't seen any in like Game or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's they've really what they've been replaced by is sort of the free-to-play box cards that you now have, where you can buy like 500 Farmville credits or something, whatever they are.
I mean, I can tell you that the buying cosmetics works. I mean, I've spent like 40, maybe a bit more money, quid on Dota cosmetics.
I haven't actually bought. I don't think I've bought any cosmetics in Dota using money that I've specifically put in for buying cosmetics. The only free-to-play game I've bought cosmetics in is PlanetSide 2, and I massively regretted it.
Well, no, see, it came down to I play a lot, and every now and then it was kind of like, oh, I fancy buying something.
Yeah.
I've got money in my Steam wallet.
This looks nice.
I'm going to buy that.
Yeah.
And over time, that's added up.
Yeah.
I think there's some developers refer to them as like whales, the people that literally come on and they'll spend like 100 quid in the shop in one go. I don't do anything like that.
I do know people that do that. Like I used to manage a private server for a game that's now no longer around, but like the amount of money that would generate, because some people would donate like 200-300 quid a week just to get like gold and items. And like, even though I personally don't agree with allowing that because it just shortens a server's life by drastically, it just makes so much money that like a whole business around building like these like often quite illegal private servers of other MMOs, charging for items, like it's free to play, but you can buy items to get like that edge of other players. They get really rich, close down the server, and then make another server. And like people make a lot of money doing that.
Yeah, no, that's the problem with private servers.
So you mentioned paying to kind of get ahead.
Yeah.
You got the WoW, World of Warcraft doing their level 90 buy-in option.
Yeah.
What did you think about that when you first saw that?
Personally, I thought that like it's an old game and they're trying to get people into it. Like I don't think it's great, but it's clearly targeted at trying to get people back into the game, because I don't think it's ideal for new players because they'll just be swamped with a level 90 player.
Well, the way I look at it is that they're I think it's genuinely a bad thing, but not because it's a bad idea, because giving someone a level 90 for an old game is ideal, because the idea is that one of the pre-order bonuses for Warlords of Draenor currently is a level up 90 character. The problem they're going to have is that people are going to see the price tag and they're going to go, that's too expensive because it's $60. That's like a game when I could just pay the subscription fee for 1 month and get a character like that. And then people are going to look at it and go, that's too cheap because you have to make it cost a certain amount, otherwise everyone will do it and there's no point to level ever. So if they made it more expensive, they have people complaining that they're trying to get money out of people. If they make it cheaper, then they have people complaining that they're making the leveling experience like cheaper as well. So I really think it's a bad decision.
But do you think the leveling experience is a required component to MMOs?
Yes.
For a new player, yes. Like personally, I really like the what's it called? The revival scroll? Scroll of Resurrection. Like when they had the offer that if you scroll of Resurrection and Buddy, this is when Mr. Pandaria first came out.
Yeah.
You got a character at 80. And that was good because basically you got a character that was just at the start of the new content.
Yeah.
So get old players that have used to play back to play the new content, which worked because they probably have levels if they already have all the other expansions to that level, they already have.
What is the current max?
90.
In which case, the level 80 character would be the start of Cataclysm.
Oh, right.
85, yeah.
So
then it was, you play a bit, you get to
I
85.
got a Skull of
Pandaria.
Resurrection character who was level 18. This is my why I believe that giving people the option to buy level 90 characters is a bad idea. Is that I can't remember. I think it was Skull of Resurrection, and I bought a subscription, and you get a level 80 character at the time. This was during Cata, so it was 85 was the max. So you got a level 80 character, and I picked a rogue because I always wanted to play a rogue, but I couldn't be bothered leveling one. When I got it, I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing. Like, that class might have been written, might as well have been written in a different language. I just didn't understand anything. I had 30 skill points to put in, a load of shit on my hotbars, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was just sitting there going like, wow, I actually have no idea how to play this class. And I was actually contemplating, thinking to myself, like, I should have leveled this, because the point of the leveling experience a lot of the time is that it teaches you what your class does and what your class is good at and how to use your tools. Whereas I get given this character, I have all of these abilities, I don't know what I'm doing.
I've just had a thought though. It shouldn't be level 90, it should be slightly lower, because I'm thinking quite often, someone might join because they want to play with their friends.
Yeah.
But all their friends are level 90, and to get to 90 takes a long time the first time you're doing it.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if you're just doing quests, it takes a really long time.
Yeah.
So and quite often people just get bored and just stop playing because they don't play with their friends, because their friends are all raiding with their crazy god tier kit, and you're just there just doing
You're still going to encounter a problem there, that if they are, say, raiding with their raid kit for maybe the first or second tier in that expansion, well, would you think a system to actually kind of leapfrog the tier system would be alright?
They've already done that multiple occasions. That's what the Time Missile exists for. The Time Missile they brought in because there was a wall between doing raiding in Raid Finder and doing heroics, and you had to do a load of heroics to get the gear. And that's why they put Time Missile in, because you go to the Time Missile and you get a load of gear, and you basically go straight into Raid Finder from there. The problem here is that Time Missile gear is far better than anything you could ever get in Raid Finder. So the first few Raid Finder raids you have to do because they're done on a progression basis. You're not getting anything from them other than an achievement which lets you go to the next one. And it doesn't, it feels bad. But at the same time, you can't have people just jumping straight to the next raid instance because they're going in maybe undergeared without a clue on how to raid.
If they're gonna give level 90 characters out, they will need a tight mentor system.
Exactly, yeah. If you're gonna give people a new level 90 character or whatever, you have to make sure that there has to be a tutorial system which is extensive, individualized for each class. Otherwise, you're just gonna have no idea what you're doing.
What you say, maybe a separate zone. So bring it in the Death Knights.
That would work.
A level 55 character. So you had a fair amount of skills.
Yeah, exactly.
But by the
time you leave the zone, you have a
you have an idea of what you're doing with your class. Yeah, definitely. No, that's what I think is what needs to happen if they're going to put this in. Otherwise, what you're going to be doing is a load of level 90s are going to get kicked off the boat in. Are they level 90? Yeah, they're going to be kicked off the boat at Drina, and they're going to. What the fuck am I doing?
And quite often, if you're at the level, it's not a question of leveling; it's a question of getting gear.
Yeah,
and that you don't see the progression as easily, and it's not as satisfying as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. They're kind of fixing it now, but a problem you'll have going from level not playing the game to Panda tier is that the numbers get so enormous in Pandaria that you're going from not having any experience of low numbers, then you're straight in you have 400,000 health. So they already have a problem with the exponential, the growth they've had through all of the expansions, and that's what they're still doing with Warlords of Drina. But what they're gonna have is people who just have no idea, like no concept of the lower levels, no idea of the leveling experience, which means when Warlords of Draenor rolls around and they've got their level 90 character ready and they have to level, there's no guarantee they're going to stay. They might be put off by it. They might think, wow, leveling is dull as hell, like why would I ever do this? And they just quit.
Like leveling is fairly dull.
Yeah, it is.
Once you've done it, that's right, even the second time, I mean, you can explore new zones, but I don't know how well it's doing for the hell levels, but when I first leveled up a character in WoW, I hit level 40, and I went to every level 40 zone in the game, trying to get out of level 4, the 40s.
Yeah.
Because there were as many levels for that, many zones for that level selection, but I just felt like I was leveling up so slowly.
Yeah, you had Feralus, you had Desolus, Eastern and Western Plaguelands, like level 40 to level 55 or so. They redesigned those in Cataclysm because everyone agreed that they were bloody awful.
Yeah, it just the leveling experience. It felt that. I mean, going from 1 to say 30, you can do fairly rapidly.
Yeah, I'd say within 2 days.
And I felt that you picked up this kind of momentum that was just killed the second you reached late 30s, 40s, because you started having to travel around a lot more. Well, some of the zones were very just empty. I mean, the desert Tanaris with the goblins, had a lot of just empty space, and I think it was kind of assumed you had the mount, so you'd use the mount to a lot more places, but I just felt slower than it had before.
Well, the problem they have now is that when you're going through the old world content, even though it's not old world now, but when you're going through it, you're basically seeing new content because of Cataclysm. But as soon as you hit 85 or even when you're going through Cata content, actually the XP rate slows so dramatically that it is the brick wall. Like, you go into Cata and you're like, oh my god, get me out of this zone. I've been in this zone for like freaking forever, get me out of it. And then you go to Panda and it's even worse. Like, the XP bar is grotesquely large compared to how much XP you're given. And it's because they sort of subscribe to this view where, I mean, there's no reason why you should have later levels necessarily take more time than like earlier levels. There's no sort of compelling.
It should take longer, but
the starting levels,
but not to the degree.
But actually, if we go on the whole leveling as a tutorial, you should be leveling up more slowly as you're gaining skills more rapidly.
Yeah, what they do the reason your leveling is so quick at the start is because they want to throw content at you. So they want you to go to new places, they want you to have new kit stuff to play around with. But when you get to the later area and you're sitting in Pandaland and you're in the same freaking field for 3 hours and you're sitting there going, why am I doing this? Like, it's such a grind. To me, there's no reason why level 81 to 82 should take longer than level like 50 to 51.
If you go on the whole storytelling basis, because they did try to inject a lot of story into Pandaland, the slow progression could be to allow you to experience this kind of story through the quests. If they gave you more XP for quests, then you'd outlevel the zone. You might not complete the zone, in which case you're going to have quests like quest trees kind of like just ending. You might not experience some important thing for a dungeon or whatever.
So essentially, they're putting like 20, 30 levels of content, but squishing it down into 5 levels, so they make the 5 levels worth 20, 30 levels.
Yeah.
But if you have an expansion that suddenly increases the max level cap by 20, it will seem very unfriendly.
Yeah, I do see that.
I mean, if I was a new player and I saw that the level cap is 120 or whatever, I'm going to go, that's going to take a while. I probably don't want to play it. You know, unless you can find people that are going to play with you as you kind of level up, that kind of large number does seem fairly unfair.
If you're keeping your momentum, then you'll keep playing. But as soon as if you get to like a dead zone, like, oh, I've been on like this level for like the past 4 days, I just cannot be bothered.
Yeah.
You just end up putting it down, and you start like
Yeah.
taking longer between
Also,
each play.
If you're going to say that an expansion, if they did Warlords of Drina and they say, okay, this expansion is 20 levels, I'm going to say that's daunting to most people, so they won't do it. You also have to face the fact that they've got to go 90 levels if they start the game now. Like, if they're not going to be daunted by the fact you have to level from 1 to 90 to get to Warlords of Drina, I can't see 20 levels.
But it's more the fact that the number of levels you add is completely pointless. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
What level you are. Because if I'm level 90, it's effectively the same as me being level 120 in that I'm max level.
Yeah.
And that's really all that matters to the game, that you are max level.
Yeah. But they use leveling as a structure for you to get content and gear and skills.
If you look at when, I think the logic for Cataclysm only being 5 levels was that you weren't out leveling some of the old stuff a huge amount. I mean, that there was still like, XP. It wasn't saying, oh, all the old dungeons are grey now. There's no point you going into them except to explore. You now could say, well, I'm just exploring old dungeons, but I'm also getting a little bit XP out of it. And it wasn't like you're being completely shut off from those old
Actually, no, I disagree. The problem that they had was that while the levels are much closer together numerically, in terms of the XP requirements, they increased enormously between like level 80 to get level 79 to 80 is maybe like a quarter or a third of what it is to get from 80 to 81. So that problem still exists, and there is no reason to do all the content when you're level 81. There's no reason to do a level 79 instance, because a 79 instance won't give you a quarter of what a new instance will give you. That problem actually exists in the game. That's why when people go from... It's quite upsetting that when you go from Burning Crusade content to Wrath of the Lich King, the XP jump is so large that even though you've got loads of cool level 80, level 70 instances that you might be tempted to do, you do them and you get crap all XP because the XP jump is enormous. And the same thing happens with Wrath and Kata. Like the XP cap goes from, I think it's 1.5 to something like 3 or something absurd. Like they jump the XP limits while the numbers might stay the same.
Yeah, personally, I don't know, I'd rather have level padding just for that false sense of accomplishment to keep you going.
What about
and keeping everything like essentially the same?
What about a system that you had this leveling process, maybe make it a bit shorter for whatever reason, and you make it faster for future characters? Let's say I have a character at level 90, 95, 100, whatever the max for any given MMO is, and my next character comes in with a 10% bonus to XP. I know you've got heirloom items in World of Warcraft, and I think EverQuest has a veteran system, but something just automatic. You can just click a little box. You don't need to equip anything. You don't need to spend gold. Just future characters become a little bit easier to level up. So you can try out new classes and dungeons without having to sit through the whole. You're still getting the leveling up. You're learning the class. You're not going to go into a dungeon and everybody's going to be like, oh, you're such a noob, you don't know what you're doing.
But you're not spending forever doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That system would work. I'd like that system.
I mean, of course, it needs tweaking so that
here you go.
The bonus is balanced out.
Yeah, to get from level 69 to 70 in WoW was 717,000 XP. To get to level 70 to 71 was 1.5 million. They double it almost every expansion. This happens again. This is the thing that happened with level 80, is that to get from 79 to... Actually, it wasn't so bad there, but level 79 to 80 it was 1.6 million, but get to 80 to 81 it's 2 million. And Pandas had the worst one. To get from 84 to 85 it's 4.5 million. To get 85 to 86 it's 13 million XP. So they basically wiped out all the content. There's no point in doing it because the amount of XP you require is so colossal. They lock their instances out by hidden XP requirements XP rewards rather than numbers on levels.
Then you have things like, you've got a big XP problem there. Guild Wars 2 did this, I think Secret World did this, although it's been a while since I played and I can't remember exactly how the leveling up system worked, in that you had a level, but XP is really easy to come by, and what you really need is the skill points that are kind of you pick up from the world. I mean, so Guild Wars 2 you had skill challenges. I swear Secret World had a similar system that you unlocked new parts of this wheel that had all your skills on.
You also have how good your class is separate to your level.
Yeah, so that if you you're exploring, you can do quests, but also because it's really easy to come by XP. If you wanted to make a new class and you knew exactly how you wanted to build this class, such that you wouldn't need a huge number of the skill points, it would be fairly rapid to kind of get it up to max level, while still having the very slow route of you kind of figuring out, you spend skill points and everything.
That works, that's flexible, it allows flexibility.
But of course that requires the MMO to be almost entirely built around that concept.
At conceptualization.
Because I think, WoW's always used the old XP system, you get skills on level up.
Yeah.
Changing the topic massively, in WoW, how do you feel about, in the old world content, having flying mounts?
I think flying mounts are a bad thing. Because Blizzard agree, because they said this in a load of interviews that they did. I think that they regretted creating flying mounts because ignore all of the sort of profiteering parts that people say that WoW might suffer from, the grind is there so that you can pay more for it. Ignore all of that cynicism for now. Just say that most of their game designers, what they want to do is to make a world that you have to experience. You go through it and you're experiencing a world. If you're on a flying mount, you are literally not experiencing the world. You are above the world. You're just flying straight, and you never get a chance to interact with any of the terrain, with any enemies, with any NPCs or anything or any events, because you fly over it. You fly straight over it all,
which is a shame.
Yeah, I think it's a real shame.
But during the leveling up process, all expansions since the introduction of BC, you've not been able to fly.
No, you haven't. But this is why they do it, and this is why they said they regret, for the later expansions, not making it so that you just can't fly ever, because just because you hit max level doesn't mean you don't need to do anything in the world anymore, because people do dailies and they do instances, but you just don't interact with the world, you just fly over it.
I think when they were introduced in Burning Crusade as this kind of, they were very expensive. You've got to remember, at the time,
16,000.
it was so much money. I mean, even the elite mounts in Vanilla WoW were a lot of.
They were 8,000 for the flying ones.
It was
enormous.
Well, it's easy to look at the situation of the game now and go, "Oh, everybody's sitting in money."
Yeah.
But back then, people weren't. It was a lot of money.
Yeah, it was right.
And there's a max level reward to work towards something. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, no, it was good.
And Outworld was a world designed
about flying
in mind.
Yeah.
There was so much more to it if you could fly around. I mean, even
Outworld did suit flying, and I liked it in that.
Outland.
I just don't like it in the old world.
Yeah, no, I don't like it in the old world either, because they've made it so that you can fly in it, but that doesn't mean you should.
I never had that kind of problem. I mean, I got the motorbike mount. I had an engineer, and I gave him a load of money, and he made it for me. It took me forever to get that money. I mean, it was at least 14,000 gold.
Yeah, I was going to say 15,000 right now.
I mean, I got all that money. I'd been doing dailies. I'd been doing everything. And you know something? I rode around Pandaria in that. I could fly. I still rode around in that.
Yeah,
because I worked for that mount.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to ride my motorbike around because it was cool, and if somebody joined me, they could hop into the sidecar and I could drive around.
But speaking of engagement with the terrain, when I played Shivering Isles, the first 20 minutes I just hated it because you couldn't use your mount, you couldn't ride a horse, so everything took forever. But as soon as I got into the swing of things, I was you're engaged with this beautiful environment, and you're actually forced to walk through it and not just expansion for Oblivion.
Oh no, that's okay. Yeah.
And it was just because it was just a beautiful terrain, and you engage in it.
I've had the kind of opposite situation with Guild Wars recently. Guild Wars 2, you don't have mounts. It takes a while to get anywhere. At first, it's kind of oh, this is amazing, but it's already got to the point where I'm using skills to get me to move ever so slightly faster because I know where I want to be, and I've been through here 20 times.
Well, that's why that could be solved by a use of flight paths, and they have teleports in Guild Wars 2.
Unlocking teleportation when you get there. Yeah.
The point of flight paths in WoW is because they're there so that even though you're flying above the terrain, when you're on a flight path, you're getting taken through the world, so you at least get to see it. You experience it in a way that you see it on a tour bus. Whereas if you're on a flying mount, what you do is you fly as high as possible and you fly in a straight line and you alt tab, usually.
That's true. I mean, and if you look at the flight paths, the actual paths they take are the most secured ones
they
can manage.
take you. That's why they
while still getting between the two.
Yeah.
two
and all
locations.
of the latest content that they've put in the game, like the Isle of Thunder, Timeless Isle, both made so that you can't use flying mounts.
I think that was because they were very small. I did find that.
Yeah, and they want you to experience the world. They want you to have to fight enemies, not for it to be an option, but you have to fight.
I did find that questing did turn into, when you have flying mounts, you would pick up the quest, you would immediately fly into the air, you would dive bomb the enemy you wanted, kill it, get back on the mount, and then fly straight up in the air so nothing could aggro you.
Yeah.
And then dive bomb the next enemy you wanted.
Yeah, and it's like you're not interacting with the world on any meaningful level. You're sort of just like a surgeon. Like remove a mob, fly away.
But on the kind of topic of interacting with the world, I did like that element of Elder Scrolls Online. I felt that there was a certain level of world interaction. It could be a slight bias because I thought the world they constructed was beautiful.
Yeah.
And it felt like something I wanted to explore, and the lack of the map helped massively. I mean, without always being aware of where you are relative to things is useful. But, you know, you could go up and down cliffs, you could just kind of wander around. Even the little touches, like when you open a door, your hand comes out. It looks really weird when you're in third-person perspective. Yeah. Because you kind of just put your hand out and then it takes a couple of seconds before it actually loads the new zone.
Yeah, I was about to bring this up as well. Like, it does, like, the environment does look really nice in Elder Scrolls. It does look like a world instead of like a plane, like a set of planes that's just a container for mobs for you to kill.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they're going to do. I can see in the pre-order bonuses for the Imperial Edition, it looks like there's going to be ground mounts.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like there's going to be anything flying.
Yeah. Well, just very quickly, because we're running out of time, how do you feel about the Imperial race being a pre-order bonus?
Yes, I did want to mention this. It doesn't bother me a huge amount.
Right.
It's an interesting precedent because it seems almost leaning towards the in-game store in a subscription game.
Yeah.
The idea that they could add new races, but you'd have to pay for them.
I think this is going to be they're going to do the unholy trinity of an MMO that you have to buy the box for, pay the subscription fee for, and have things you can buy in game. And I think I think it's going to be outrageous.
But if it is that, I mean, I can see them losing a lot of.
Yeah, the people won't tolerate it in the same way that what game was it? I can't actually remember. No.
There's definitely been games that.
I can't remember.
So maybe they're focusing on.
Even
though if they want it to be massive, maybe they're just focusing on having like not a massive number of subscribers, but a dedicated
looking at the graphical fidelity of the world, it must have cost a fortune to make.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, this is by all accounts their next Elder Scrolls game.
And then just look at in the first section they've got Gambon, John Cleese.
They're throwing everything.
There's so much money, just voice work in that game, and a lot of people attribute a lot of the failure of Star Wars, The Old Republic, to the huge cost behind getting voice acting.
I don't know. Honestly, concerning the entire thing, I think they've put a foot wrong in that all they needed to do was, everyone says this, but all they needed to do was make a co-op Elder Scrolls. And if they put in the time and money into that, we might see something pretty interesting.
The reason I don't mind the Imperial thing is that they're trying to make the collector's edition worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with collector's editions.
No, there's nothing wrong.
Like if the race was like locked for a specific amount of time, so like the first 2 months. This is
the problem. If it was like a minor race or something like that, that would be fine. But it's the Imperials.
I have more of a problem with the pre-order bonus of being able to select any race to join any group.
Yeah, no, that's odd.
It loses a bit of its PvP focus that they were trying to build up.
Yeah, it just brings up the question of then why have these groups? I mean, what you're trying to do is you're splitting up your player base into groups, obviously, so that, I mean, it's just good storytelling to have people fighting for different sides. But then the whole point is, I mean, WoW has been very good at this, and that there's a race that you can play as either, right? And even that was a big decision for them to make. But otherwise, there's there's a firm line between the two. There's very little interaction between the two other than fighting.
You see,
which works well.
Yeah, it works well.
I like the system they used in EverQuest 2. EverQuest 2 didn't have a very big player base, and they never thought they were going to get this huge player base.
Yeah.
So you have good and evil. They're two different sides. They can interact with each other.
Yeah.
Okay. There is PvP. They can fight against each other. But the idea is, you're good and evil, but it's no reason to not, work together.
Yeah.
If you wanted to be an evil race in a good situation, you could defect.
Yeah.
It was a pain in the arse. The quest was fairly long. I don't know if it still is. It was fairly long, and I think if you went evil to good, you had to die at some point. The evil overlord, you confront him about it and he kills you.
Right.
Yeah. So there was a process by which you could get, the otherwise evil locked races onto the good side.
Yeah.
But it was you didn't see it a huge amount because it was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And that kind of system works as well, I think.
Yeah. No.
For a smaller player base, having two sides that can interact when PvP isn't your main focus.
Yeah.
Improves an otherwise diluted player base.
Yeah, definitely.
You need a massive player base for the two, just distinct groups.
Because if you think about WoW's, there's 6 million, 7 million subscribers.
Yeah.
Well, if half of them only play Alliance and half of them only play Horde, to actually keep to make it feel full, you need a lot more players.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we could probably call it there.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, guys, for listening. This was Unveiled Codex.